Okay, drawing students, today we're going to actually start on the hallway project. This is going to be a very significant grade. It's going to be worth a lot. A lot of what we did when we did the hallway worksheet is going to come in handy for what we're going to do, and you're welcome to go back and look over those videos and check on certain steps if you've forgotten how to do something. That will come in handy. I'll probably also be providing you some instructions and directions, but first thing I wanted to let you know is that you're going to have your own unique hallway to draw. I'll be making sure that you select a particular hallway for you, so you'll find out what that is pretty soon. And I'm just going to tell you the first steps today. I only want you to go so far today on the steps because I'm hoping that you're going to show me your work, and then I can look at it and catch any errors real quick, maybe before you get too much further along. So when you first start drawing this thing, your first goal is going to be to sight your back wall, the back wall that's in the very, very back. Now, some of you guys are going to have a normal back wall, and some of you guys are going to have a back wall that is behind a middle wall. Right now, let me just deal with the regular back wall people, and then we'll talk about that in just a minute. So the first thing you're going to do real quick is you're going to create your back wall in here. It's not going to be a square. It will be a rectangle. And so the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to take your pencil and you're going to sight the height to the length, and you're going to discover that it's going to be longer than it is tall. As I discovered here, it's about 1.5 times. Now, I'm not going to use a ruler because I'm going to go fast and quick, but you'll end up actually creating some kind of rectangle in about the middle of your page. Just make sure it has the same relationship. It's got the same, like 1 to 1.5 ratio that this has got. You want this in the middle of your paper, and you don't want it too big. If you make it too big, it's going to give you a very shallow hallway. It's not going to be very good, and you'll probably have to go back and do it all over again. Okay, and you're going to be doing this on your paper. Now, the next step. Well, before we go to the next step, one thing that will help you, how big should I draw my back wall, Mr. Norris? Well, one thing that you want to do is you want to make the height of this back wall something that you can divide into evenly. Make your math as easy for you as you can. So, for instance, in our hallway drawings, the minimum number of bricks you can have is 12. You could have as many as 14. In our real hallways, we usually have 12.5 to 13 bricks. So if I were you, if I was going to be doing 12 bricks, for instance, I would maybe make it, you can make it 24 millimeters high, and then that way each brick 2 into 24 millimeters is going to be every 2 millimeters you're going to have a brick, and that'd be really, really easy to do. You could go up to 36, that's kind of big, but that'd be a good range. You could go as small as 12. I mean, it's going to be really teeny tiny, but boy, you'll get a nice deep, deep, deep hallway. But I probably would go for that range if you're doing it on a 9 by 12 piece of paper. If you were doing this project on a 12 by 18 inch piece of paper, it'd be a different story. You might go as big as 48 millimeters or 60 millimeters, but for something small, I'd go smaller. Now, the next goal that you're going to have is you want to figure out what the angle is for your ceiling and for your floor. I do not want you to just automatically take them to the corners of your paper like we did on this hallway worksheet. On the hallway worksheet, we made it easy for you. I want you to try to get these angles similar to what you see in front of you, whether you're working in a real hallway or in this case, a picture. So what I would do is I would take my pencil and I would hold it like this, and I would put it in this right corner, and I would tilt my pencil up and go flat, and I would do that several times to kind of build up some muscle memory. And then once you do that, on your paper, try to create that same angle best as you can. And then create it. And you would do the same thing for the left and for the right. Now, in these photographs, you're going to see the ceiling, it goes off the top of the page. I don't think any of the photographs, if you're using a photograph, I don't think any of the ceilings go off the sides. So that's going to make this doing the ceiling pretty easy for you, but it may not be so easy with the floor. So let's pretend like we sighted this one, that we sighted it, from the real thing, and then we drew our line here. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sight the floor. Well, we do the floor the same way that we did the ceiling. We take our pencil, put our finger and our thumb. I usually grab it here. I put it right in this back corner right here, and then we go down. And then after I do that several times and kind of build up my muscle memory, what is that like compared to a horizontal line? Then I come over here and I do the same thing. And you're going to discover that most of you that are drawing this, that the floor line is not going to go off the bottom of the page. This might make it a little more complicated. I'm just going to make this one up just for the sake of time. Okay? Now, but make sure you sight all of these. And then the next thing you're going to do is your math. Your ceiling tiles. In the hallways, there's usually 6 tiles across here. So you would measure this in millimeters. Don't worry if it's not a perfectly even number. Just measure it and divide it by 6. You know, if you get an exact even number, that's great. If you get, you know, something in the half, you're fine. If it's something that's like, you know, like if I took this, for instance, it's 4, and I divided 6 into 4. I'm just going to, this is just scribble paper. So 6 into 4 is going to be 6.6666. So basically 6.5 or so. But if I wanted to make sure, you know, so if it's 6.5, I can kind of go every 6.5 and make a mark. But whatever the length is, if it's something weird like 6.3, then I would do 6, then 6.5, 6, 6.5, 6, 6.5. In other words, alternate that measurement so you're dividing that down. Okay? And then when you go up here, if it's going off the top perfectly like this, just measure this and divide by 6. And then you'll be able to connect your lines. But don't connect any lines today. All I want you to do is put the math tick marks on there today only. I'm not going to be able to measure them with a ruler because I'll be looking at it probably from a picture on your computer screen, but at least I can look at it and see if it at least looks like it's even. But don't connect them today. Just measure, divide by 6, measure, divide by 6. If you have a hallway where there's 5 whole tiles and a half a tile and a half a tile, well, you would do the same thing. You divide it by 6, but the only difference is your first tile would be 3.3, and this would be 3.3, and the rest would be 6.6. And if that confused you, don't worry about it, okay? Now, your floor, I told you that you had to at least put a horizontal line in, which you're going to do that. You can do that later. If you're going to do tiles for the floor, if you're in some of the hallways, a lot of the hallways have 4 or 5 tiles on the floor. You would measure, divide by 4 or 5. But down here, you can't measure from the corner of your paper to the corner of your paper because these lines go off. So what you would do is you would find the line that goes off the page first. This one goes off first. You would have to create a temporary horizontal line that goes all the way across. You would measure this distance, make a tick mark over here, take your ruler, draw a temporary line. You would have to measure this and divide by the number of floor tiles. And if you do that, you make your marks here, but don't connect them yet. I just want to see it. If you're in one of those hallways that have about 12 or 13 tiles, you're going to have a lot more marks. But if you don't want to do all the tiles on the floor, I'm okay with that. You can put in some horizontal strips later. But you need to at least have your ceiling lines in and then your brick lines. Now, your brick lines are going to be a little tricky. When you measure this, you got to divide it by the number of bricks. And we said that you could have a minimum of 12. You could have as many as 14. If you picked a measurement that's divisible by 12, like 12 or 24 or even 36, it's going to work out perfect. If you're going to do 13, you could do 13 or 26 or maybe even 39. If you're going to do 14, you could do 14 or 28. Boy, 56 would be really, really, really pushing it. So I probably wouldn't go that far. Or 52, sorry, 52. You might be able to go with 52. But I probably would go with 12. Do your math here. And when you do your math, double check. These will be the same. This measurement will be exactly the same as this measurement, or at least it's supposed to be. Make sure you're butting up your ruler. When you're making horizontal lines, butt up that ruler every single time. Butt up your ruler with the top of your page every single time. Otherwise, your lines are going to slant or lean. And then lastly, when you're doing the brick lines here, and this is where you're going to probably stop today, when you do your brick lines here, notice that this ceiling goes off the top of the page. Well, guess what? The floor line, it goes off the side. It doesn't go off the bottom. So you can't measure from here to here. You can't do that. What you're going to do is you're going to have to measure over here. Drop a line straight down. If you want to make sure that it's not leaning on you, measure this, like mine is like 2.1. Well, then I'd come to the bottom of the page, go 2.1, take my ruler, and I could use that, and I could for sure get a pretty straight line. I would measure and divide this by the number of bricks right here. If I have 12 bricks here, I'm going to have 12 bricks here. Count your tick marks. Now remember, you'll probably have 11 tick marks, but 12 spaces. Or if you have 13 bricks, you're going to have 12 tick marks, 13 spaces. But these are the first steps. So all you're going to do is sight your back wall. It's a rectangle. Get it in there. Pick a height that you can divide by your number of bricks, whatever you choose, 12, 13, or 14. Sight your ceiling lines. Draw them. Sight your floor lines. Draw them. Make sure you use a ruler for everything. I would go very lightly with your pencil pressure. Measure and divide by probably 6. And then measure and divide by 6. And then you're going to measure and divide by the number of bricks, so it would be 12, 13, or 14. And then when you come out here, you can't measure at the end of the page. You're going to have to drop this straight down, measure it, and you can put your tick marks. All you need are your tick marks for today. That's all you should have. When you get done, make sure you email me to tell me that you're ready for me to look at it, or you can make a comment under the post and say, please check my progress, and I'll check it. And if I don't see anything really, really egregiously wrong, I'll say you're good to go, and we'll be ready for the next step tomorrow.